there is a recent study that was done and published in The Lancet that shows that there was no increase of pot use among teenagers living in the 21 different states with medical marijuana laws. And this is, of course, reported in Reuters. Now, this is interesting because it flies in the face of what you would hear from people who are anti-legalization proponents. The kids are going to start doing it. Think of the children. Won't somebody think of the children, please? Well, according to the study, that it does not lead to increased underage use of marijuana. Now, this study analyzed data on 1 million teenagers in 48 states and found that, as I said, legalizing marijuana didn't just lead to teenagers using at the same rate. They use at a decreased rate. It went from 8% before legalization to 6% afterwards. That's a 2% drop, and I think that's significant. It's not huge, but it's significant.
Mm-hmm.
Now, go ahead.
No, I was waiting.
Okay, so there's some more data here with some of the states that had done this. With Alaska and Hawaii, a total of 23 states have legalized medical marijuana, and Maryland, Minnesota, and New York legalized last year, according to the website procon.org. In states that passed medical marijuana laws after the study began, teen marijuana use had actually already been slightly higher than in other states. So let's point that out already. Usage was about 16%, compared to 13% in states that didn't have those laws. So once again, that's 3%. It is still statistically significant, but not hugely, just like the 6 to 8%. Now, the difference is, they explain, due to the more liberal attitudes towards the drug in medical marijuana states. Live Science reported this. Our study findings suggest the debate over the role of medical marijuana laws in adolescent marijuana use should cease, and that resources should be applied to identifying factors that do affect risk. Basically saying that even though we're in a state that has it, that does not mean that they will use marijuana at an increased rate. So that's interesting. Now, the researchers said that pot use decreased among 8th graders after medical marijuana was legalized because the teens started to see pot as a, quote, relatively harmless medical product that certainly doesn't fit with the idea of being a rebellious teenager. And that's according to marijuana industry expert Deborah Borchardt wrote in Forbes magazine. Now, what do you think about this, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, I think that last quote kind of hit it on the head, and I'm not really terribly surprised. I mean, marijuana is, I think that when you look at just the whole instance of marijuana and its history in this country, it is one of the most successful propaganda campaigns maybe ever in this country. You know, I mean, it's based on complete fabrications. I mean, marijuana up until recently, we're finally opening the gates on this, but marijuana up until recently was declared a Class A drug by the DEA, which means it has no redeeming value. It's no more beneficial for you than heroin, even though there's countless scientific evidence to the contrary. But there was a huge propaganda campaign back in like the 30s that continued for years and years, mostly because the pharmaceutical industry wanted to demonize it because they wanted to make more money off pain pills. And finally, we're going through that. So, of course, when states legalize it and they're recognizing there's medical benefits here and what have you, people are recognizing it for what it is. It is a plant. It can be a lot of fun, but yeah, it's not this like gateway drug or this like, oh, you're going to smoke a joint and then beat up everybody you see. Actually, the opposite's probably true. People are finally seeing that now. And yeah, to teens, it's not, the whole taboo idea is just lost, as it should have been years ago and never should have been a taboo thing.
But Ron, didn't Colorado implode? I thought I read that somewhere.
I blame the altitude if it did.
Oh, okay. No, it turns out that even the, I believe it was the governor that came out in Colorado that said, you know, it wasn't as big of a boon as we expected, but it also didn't cause the state to explode. So overall, legalization was a positive thing. They did make revenue from legalizing it, regulating it, and taxing it. They made a lot of revenue. They saved a lot of money on drug enforcement. And, they didn't see this massive uptick in, minors and pretty much everybody doing pot and going to work stoned and causing car crashes and all this horrible stuff that a lot of, as I said, anti-pot activists wanted to point it as and wanted to paint this whole legalization as a bad thing. We didn't see that happen. It never materialized.
No, and honestly, I don't think the whole revenue aspect of it has been realized yet, because there's still so much red tape at the federal level. Even though like at the state level, so you gotta factor that in. That's a realistic or a real roadblock that's going on too. So,
and that's a good point. And I think I want to bring up about public opinion, because especially after these studies continue to come out and as it gets more normalized, I think public opinion will continue to shift in favor, as it has been steadily. And actually, I go to Pew Research polling on this one. Public opinion in 2012 and 2013 has actually reached a tipping point. Now, in 2012, only 43% of people were in favor, and 49% were opposed to marijuana being legal and accessible. And that's even, I think, in medical medicinal types of uses. And in 2013, you saw a dramatic shift. 52% of Americans were now in favor, and 45% were opposed. And if you go by party, Democrats, as of 2015 now, are 59% in favor, 58% for independents, and 39% for Republicans. So conservatives, you kind of got to catch up on that one. Public opinion overall, 53% are in favor and only 44% opposed. So it's already reached a tipping point, and I think the federal government, as you pointed out, needs to kind of catch up with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it's time, and I think the information is out there, and we're kind of seeing through archaic ways of thinking. But, for some, old habits die hard.
Right.